The truth is that your constant presence is the very thing destroying your value, and it is ruining your life without you even noticing. You wake up every day and make yourself available. You respond to every message. You show up to every gathering. You say yes when your body screams no. You bend, you accommodate, you dissolve yourself into the needs of others. And what do you get in return? Disrespect, taken for granted, invisible, a ghost in your own life. You have become so present that you have ceased to exist. But why does no one talk about the power found in the shadows? Because the system needs you visible, it needs you accessible, it needs you weak. The moment you understand the mechanism of absence, the moment you grasp the architecture of strategic withdrawal, you become ungovernable. You become dangerous. And that is precisely what they fear. Niccolò Machiavelli was not merely a political theorist scribbling observations about Renaissance princes. He was an architect of perception, a master of the invisible strings that move human hearts and minds. What he understood, what he encoded in his works, was not just advice for rulers. It was a blueprint for sovereign existence, a manual for those who refuse to be pawned in someone else's game. And today you are going to learn what the powerful have always known and what society desperately tries to keep hidden from you. This is not about becoming cold. This is not about cruelty for its own sake. This is about reclaiming your throne. This is about understanding that the most profound form of power is not in what you do, but in what you refuse to do, in what you withhold, in the space you leave empty. By the end of this transmission, you will have undergone a transformation. You will no longer be a disposable resource in the machinery of other people's desires. You will become a sovereign force, unmoved, unshaken, valued not because you are everywhere, but because you are strategically nowhere. Let us begin with a truth so fundamental that it will shatter the very foundation of how you have been living. The paradox of presence and absence destroys more lives than any war, any disease, any catastrophe. It operates silently, invisibly, like a poison you cannot taste until you have already swallowed it for years. Here is the mechanism. The more present you are, the less valuable you become. This is not opinion. This is not philosophy. This is the immutable law of human perception. Think of the most precious substances on earth: gold, diamonds, rare art. What makes them valuable? Their scarcity, their unavailability, the fact that not everyone can have them. Now think of air, essential for life, absolutely necessary. Without it, you die in minutes. And yet, what is its value? Nothing. Zero. Why? Because it is everywhere. It is abundant. It is too available. You are air. You have made yourself so common, so accessible, so endlessly available that your value has evaporated into nothingness. The cruel mathematics of supply and demand do not stop at economics. They penetrate every fiber of human interaction. When you are always there, always responding, always accommodating, you become the human equivalent of background noise. People stop seeing you. They stop appreciating you. They start expecting you, and expectation is the death of gratitude. Consider your workplace, the person who stays late every night, who says yes to every project, who makes themselves available at all hours. Are they promoted? Are they respected? No. They are exploited. They have taught everyone around them that their time has no value, that their boundaries do not exist, that they can be used without consequence. Meanwhile, the person who guards their time, who says no strategically, who creates the perception of scarcity around their attention, becomes the one people fight to access. They become valuable, not through more effort, but through less availability. This extends to every domain of your life. In relationships, the person who is always available, always texting back immediately, always canceling their plans to accommodate the other, becomes boring, predictable, taken for granted. The mystery evaporates, the challenge disappears, and with it, so does the desire. Human beings are not wired to value what they can have at any moment. We are wired to pursue what eludes us. We are wired to crave what we cannot fully possess. The brutal advice is this: stop being everywhere. Stop responding immediately. Stop making yourself the solution to everyone else's problems. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you are teaching the world that you do not respect yourself. And if you do not respect yourself, why should anyone else? This brings us to the power of withdrawal, a force so potent that it has toppled empires and broken hearts that seemed unbreakable. Absence does not create a void, it creates a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. When you remove yourself from someone's life, from a situation, from a dynamic where you have been constantly present, you trigger a psychological crisis in those left behind. They begin to question. They begin to wonder. They begin to realize what they had only when it is gone. Withdrawal is not passive. It is the most active form of power you possess. When you speak constantly, your words lose weight. When you are silent, every word you do eventually speak becomes heavy with meaning. When you are always physically present, your presence becomes wallpaper. When you withdraw, your absence becomes a presence more powerful than your body ever was. Think of it as psychological warfare, but the battlefield is perception. Most people operate on the assumption that maintaining connection requires constant contact. This is a lie sold to you by a culture addicted to instant gratification and terrified of solitude. The truth is that connection deepens in space. Longing intensifies in absence. Value crystallizes in scarcity. Consider the master negotiator. They do not chase. They do not beg. They do not make themselves desperately available. They withdraw. They create space. They let the other party sit in the silence, in the uncertainty, in the fear of losing the deal. And in that space, desperation grows. The perceived value of the negotiator skyrockets. When they return from a position of strength. Apply this to your personal relationships. The friend who always needs you but is never there when you need them. What happens when you stop being available? At first, they may not notice. They are so used to your presence being a given. But then, slowly, the questions start. Where are you? Why aren't you responding? Are you okay? And beneath those questions is the real crisis. They are being forced to confront the fact that they took you for granted. Your absence has become a mirror, forcing them to see their own exploitation of you. In romantic dynamics, this is even more pronounced. The person who chases loses, always. The person who can walk away, who can be content without the other, who has a life so full that the relationship is an addition rather than a necessity, that person holds all the power. Not because they are playing games, but because they have genuine sovereignty. They do not need validation. They do not need constant reassurance. Their absence is not a strategy. It is a state of being. The advice: practice strategic withdrawal. Disappear for a day. Turn off your phone. Do not explain. Do not justify. Simply be unavailable. Watch what happens. Watch how people scramble. Watch how your value inflates in the space you have created. And most importantly, watch how you feel. Because in that solitude, in that silence, you will remember something you have forgotten. You will remember that you exist independently of other people's perception of you. This leads directly into the illusion of constant availability, perhaps the most insidious trap of modern existence. You have been conditioned to believe that being helpful is a virtue, that being available is kindness, that saying yes makes you a good person. This is a lie. This is control masquerading as morality. There is a critical distinction that will change your life, the difference between being useful and being valuable. Useful is a tool. Useful is a resource. Useful is something you use until it breaks, and then you replace it. Valuable is rare. Valuable is irreplaceable. Valuable is something you protect, you cherish, you fight to keep. When you make yourself constantly available, you become useful. You become the person people call when they need something, the person they text when they are bored, the person they lean on when they are struggling, but ignore when they are thriving. You have become a utility, a convenience, and conveniences are not valued. They are expected. Every time you abandon your own needs to meet someone else's, you commit an act of self-violence. You are telling your subconscious that your time does not matter, that your energy does not matter, that you do not matter. And your subconscious believes you. It internalizes this message, and slowly, imperceptibly, your self-respect crumbles. You become a shell of compliance, moving through life at the mercy of other people's agendas. Look at your phone right now. How many messages are you sitting on? How many demands are waiting for your response? How many people are expecting you to solve their problems, ease their boredom, validate their existence? And what are you getting in return? Gratitude? Respect? No. You are getting more demands. Because you have trained them, you have taught them that you have no boundaries, that you are always accessible, that your yes is guaranteed. The parasites in your life exist because you allow them to exist. They feed on your inability to say no. They thrive on your misguided belief that sacrifice is noble. Let me tell you what sacrifice actually is. Sacrifice is giving up something valuable for something more valuable. What you are doing is not sacrifice. It is self-abandonment. It is self-erasure. It is slow suicide by 1,000 small yeses. Here is what you must understand. Your time is your life. When you give away your time thoughtlessly, you are giving away your life. When you say yes to someone else's priority, you are saying no to your own. When you make yourself available to everyone, you become available to no one, including yourself. The brutal truth: start saying no, not as an explanation, not as an apology, just no. Watch how many relationships evaporate. Good. Those were not relationships, those were extraction systems. Watch how some people get angry. Even better. Their anger is proof that they saw you as a resource, not as a person. Watch how a rare few respect it. Those are your people. Those are the ones who understand that boundaries are not walls. They are the foundation of genuine respect. Now we enter darker territory, the territory of persona versus individuation, the territory where most people spend their entire lives trapped in a prison they cannot see because the bars are made of other people's expectations. You are not who you think you are. The person you present to the world, the carefully constructed image you have built through years of social conditioning, is not you. It is a persona, a mask, a false self designed to gain approval, avoid rejection, and navigate the social world with minimal friction. And that persona is killing you. Carl Jung called the process of becoming who you actually are individuation. It is the psychological journey from the false self to the true self. And it is the most terrifying journey you will ever take because it requires the death of who you pretended to be. It requires you to disappoint people. It requires you to stop performing. It requires you to withdraw from the stage of social expectation and descend into the unknown territory of your actual nature. Strategic solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the pain of unwanted isolation. Solitude is the power of chosen aloneness. In solitude, away from the constant noise of other people's opinions, needs, and judgments, something extraordinary happens. The false self begins to dissolve, the mask starts to crack, and beneath it you find something raw, something real, something that has been buried under years of people-pleasing and social performance. Most people are terrified of this. Most people will do anything to avoid being alone with themselves. They fill every moment with noise, with distraction, with other people. Why? Because in the silence, in the solitude, they would have to confront the truth. They do not know who they are. They have spent so long being what others needed them to be that they have lost any connection to their authentic self. The Machiavellian insight here is profound. The person who is comfortable in solitude is ungovernable. They do not need social approval. They do not need validation. They do not need to be liked. This makes them powerful beyond measure because all social control operates through the threat of exclusion. If you do not fear being alone, If you do not fear being rejected, if you actually prefer your own company to the company of those who demand you diminish yourself, then you cannot be controlled. Think about the people in your life who drain you, the ones who demand constant attention, constant reassurance, constant entertainment. They are terrified of solitude. They are terrified of facing themselves. So they make it your job to distract them from their own emptiness. And you comply. You drain yourself trying to fill a void in them that can never be filled from the outside. Strategic solitude is the weapon that ends this dynamic. When you withdraw, when you choose yourself over their demands, you force them to face what they have been avoiding. And one of two things happens. They grow or they leave. Either way, you win. Either you get a relationship based on mutual respect rather than codependence, or you get freedom from a parasitic dynamic. The advice is simple, but not easy. Disappear, not forever, not as punishment, but as a necessity. Carve out sacred time where you are unavailable to everyone, where you are not performing for anyone, where you can hear your own thoughts without the interference of other people's needs. In that space, you will begin to remember who you are beneath all the layers of social conditioning. And that person, that authentic self, is worth more than all the approval you have ever chased. Let us now discuss psychic energy and manipulation, because this is where the game is truly played. Most manipulation does not happen through force. It happens through energy, through emotional reaction, through the manipulator's ability to make you feel responsible for their feelings, their problems, their life. The manipulator needs your reaction. They need your guilt. They need your fear of disappointing them. They need your empathic response. Without it, they have no power. Think of manipulation as a parasite. It cannot survive without a host. And your emotional reactivity is the blood it feeds on. Silence is not passive. Silence is the act of starving the parasite. When someone tries to manipulate you and you do not react, when you do not defend yourself, when you do not explain, when you do not feel guilty, when you simply remain unmoved, the manipulation dies. It has nowhere to go. It cannot hook into you. This is psychological warfare at its finest. The manipulator is used to getting a reaction. They are used to your guilt. They are used to your explanations. When you withdraw that, when you meet their manipulation with impenetrable silence, you reverse the power dynamic. Now they are the ones scrambling. They are the ones feeling unsteady. They are the ones trying harder and harder to get a response, becoming more desperate, more transparent, until their manipulation becomes obvious even to them. Consider the guilt tripper in your life. The person who sighs heavily, who makes passive-aggressive comments, who reminds you of all they have done for you whenever you set a boundary. They are skilled. They know exactly which buttons to push. They have been pushing them for years. But here is the secret. Those buttons only work if you let them work. What happens when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your choices, when you simply say no and then nothing? The guilt tripper short circuits. They escalate at first, trying harder to get the reaction they need. But if you remain unmoved, if you refuse to engage, the dynamic collapses. They are forced to either respect your boundary or reveal themselves as the manipulator they truly are. This applies to professional environments as well. The boss who uses fear and intimidation, the colleague who plays office politics, the client who makes unreasonable demands, they all operate on the assumption that you need them more than they need you, that you will comply to avoid conflict, that your need for approval or security will override your boundaries. Silence and strategic withdrawal destroy this assumption. When you are willing to walk away, when you demonstrate through your actions that you do not need their approval, that you are not desperate for their validation, you become unmanipulatable. And in becoming unmanipulatable, you become powerful. The brutal truth: most of your relationships are held together by your fear of what will happen if you set boundaries. The moment you realize you will survive their disapproval, you will survive their absence, you will survive being disliked, you become free. And freedom is intolerable to those who profit from your chains. This understanding crystallizes into the principle of conscious unavailability. This is where we murder the false virtue of endless sacrifice and resurrect the true virtue of self-protection. You have been taught that good people sacrifice, that good people put others first, that good people are always available to help. This is one of the most destructive lies ever sold to the human psyche. It is a lie that benefits everyone except you. Real virtue is not self-destruction. Real virtue is the cultivation of something valuable enough to protect. You cannot give from an empty well. You cannot light the way for others when your own flame has been extinguished by the wind of their demands. Conscious unavailability is the practice of protecting your finite resources so that what you do give is meaningful rather than obligatory. Think of yourself as a high-value currency. If you flood the market with that currency, it becomes worthless. If you carefully control its supply, if you make it difficult to obtain, its value skyrockets. Your time, your energy, your attention, these are currencies, and you have been printing them without limit, devaluing yourself in the process. Protecting your time is not selfish. It is the most unselfish thing you can do because it ensures that when you do give, you are giving from a place of abundance rather than resentment. Every yes you give from a place of obligation poisons the relationship. It breeds resentment in you and entitlement in them. Conscious unavailability ensures that your yes means something. But here is the deeper function. Conscious unavailability acts as a social filter. It repels parasites. The people who only wanted you for what you could do for them, the people who only valued you for your utility, will disappear the moment you become unavailable. And this is not a loss. This is a purification. Watch what happens when you start protecting your time. Watch how many people get angry. Watch how many people accuse you of changing, of being selfish, of not caring anymore. These accusations are not insights into your character. They are confessions of their own entitlement. They are angry because the resource they were exploiting is no longer freely available. Their anger is proof that you are doing the right thing. And watch what else happens. Watch how new people enter your life. People who respect boundaries. People who understand that your time is valuable. People who do not expect you to diminish yourself to accommodate them. These are relationships built on mutual respect rather than exploitation. These are the relationships worth having. The advice? Create a fortress around your time. Schedule your own priorities first. Make appointments with yourself that are non-negotiable. When someone asks for your time, your default answer should be, "Let me check my schedule," not an immediate yes. Learn to be unavailable. Learn to let people wait. Learn that the world does not collapse when you put yourself first. In fact, the world respects you more. Finally, we arrive at the destination of this dark journey, rebirth through solitude. The ultimate psychological independence, the state where you no longer need anyone to define who you are. Most people are walking dead. They are empty vessels filled with other people's opinions. They look in the mirror and see a collage of social expectations rather than a human being. They measure their worth by external metrics, likes, followers, job titles, relationship status, what others think of them. They are not living. They are being lived by the collective. Solitude is the furnace in which the false self is burned away. It is not comfortable. It is not easy. In the beginning, when you withdraw from the constant noise of social validation, you will feel a kind of panic. The voice in your head will scream that you are making a mistake, that you are isolating yourself, that you will be forgotten, that you will become irrelevant. Good. Let it scream. Let the fear surface. Because beneath that fear is the truth. You have been addicted to external validation. You have been addicted to the feeling of being needed. You have been addicted to the small hits of approval that come from making yourself available. And like any addict, you must go through withdrawal. In that withdrawal, in that solitude, something miraculous happens. The noise quiets. The constant chatter of other people's needs, opinions, and demands fades into silence. And in that silence, you hear something you have not heard in a very long time. Your own voice, your own thoughts, your own desires, your own truth. This is the purification process. This is where you separate what is actually yours from what was downloaded into you by society, family, culture, and the collection of parasites you mistook for friends. You begin to understand that most of what you believed about yourself was not true. It was simply the role you were assigned in other people's stories. The rebirth is painful because birth is always painful. You are not meant to stay in the womb forever. You are not meant to remain dependent on external validation for your sense of self. You are meant to individuate. You are meant to become sovereign. You are meant to be so grounded in your own being that other people's approval or disapproval does not move you. When you reach this state, something extraordinary happens. People start valuing you. Not because you are trying harder, not because you are more available, not because you are performing better, but because you have stopped needing them, and human beings are wired to pursue what does not need them. We are wired to value what we cannot control. The person who is psychologically independent, who is genuinely comfortable alone, who does not need social validation to feel whole, is magnetic. Not because they are playing a game, but because they have transcended the game. They are not trying to be liked. They are not trying to be impressive. They are simply being themselves, take it or leave it. And that authenticity, that groundedness, that sovereignty is rare enough to be valuable. Think of it as the ultimate paradox. The moment you stop needing people is the moment they start needing you. The moment you become comfortable with being alone is the moment you stop being lonely. The moment you no longer seek validation is the moment you become genuinely attractive. The advice is stark. Embrace solitude not as a punishment, but as a necessity. See it as the only path to discovering who you actually are beneath all the layers of social performance. Use it to build a relationship with yourself that is so strong that no external relationship can shake it. And from that foundation of self-respect, of self-knowledge, of self-sufficiency, engage with the world. But engage as a sovereign, not as a beggar. As someone who chooses to connect, not someone who needs to connect. And what if I told you that even the most powerful rulers in history fell into the trap of being too visible? Consider Louis XIV, the Sun King. He built Versailles, the most spectacular palace in Europe, and demanded that the nobility live there under his watchful eye. He was everywhere. He was the center of everything. Every aspect of court life revolved around him. And what happened? He became predictable. The mystery evaporated. By the end of his reign, the monarchy was so overexposed, so omnipresent, that it began to lose its sacred aura. The seeds of revolution were planted in the soil of excessive visibility. Contrast this with Queen Elizabeth I, who mastered the art of strategic withdrawal. She created an aura of mystique through calculated absence. She was seen rarely enough that each appearance became an event. She did not explain herself. She did not justify her decisions. She maintained a distance that bred both respect and fear. Her unavailability made her powerful. Even in the modern corporate world, the most successful leaders understand this principle. Steve Jobs was notoriously absent from most meetings. Elon Musk disappears for days at a time into deep work. Warren Buffett lives in Omaha, far from the chaos of Wall Street. They have understood that visibility is not the same as influence. That being everywhere dilutes your power. That strategic absence concentrates your impact. We have now excavated the fundamental truth. Your constant presence has been destroying your value. You have been so available that you have become invisible, so useful that you have become worthless, so accommodating that you have become forgotten. But the truth alone is not enough. Truth without application is just intellectual entertainment. So now we must descend into the practical realm. Now we must discuss the tactics, the specific strategies, the Machiavellian maneuvers you can deploy in the modern world to reclaim your power through strategic absence. In the digital age, presence is weaponized. Social media has created the illusion that more visibility equals more influence. This is false. Constant posting, constant engagement, constant availability online creates the same effect as constant availability in person. You become wallpaper. Your content blurs into the infinite scroll. Your voice becomes one of millions shouting into the void. The masters of digital influence understand scarcity. They post rarely, but with impact. They create gaps that make people wonder. They do not respond to every comment. They do not engage with every trend. They cultivate mystery through selective visibility. When they do appear, it matters. When they do speak, people listen. Because they have not trained their audience to expect constant access. Apply this to your own digital life. Stop posting constantly. Stop responding immediately to every message. Stop updating everyone on every aspect of your life. Create space. Create gaps. Let people wonder where you are, what you are doing. The fear of missing out works in reverse. When you are constantly visible, there is nothing to miss. In leadership, the principle of absence manifests as strategic delegation and selective presence. The leader who is in every meeting, making every decision, involved in every detail, becomes a bottleneck. They also lose their aura. They become just another worker, just another voice in the room. The effective leader is the one who appears rarely, but when they do appear, their presence changes the room. This is not about laziness. This is about understanding that your presence should be an event, not a given. When you insert yourself into everything, you dilute yourself. When you carefully choose when to be present, when to contribute, when to make your voice heard, each instance carries weight. In negotiation and conflict, silence is the nuclear option. Most people cannot tolerate silence. It makes them uncomfortable, so they fill it. They keep talking. They reveal more than they intended. They make concessions just to end the silence. The person who can sit comfortably in silence, who can let the other party squirm, who does not feel compelled to fill every gap with words, controls the negotiation. Practice this in your daily interactions. When someone makes a demand, do not respond immediately. Let there be silence. Let them sit in it. Let them wonder what you are thinking. Often they will backtrack, modify, or reveal the weakness of their position simply because they cannot tolerate the uncertainty of your silence. In relationships, romantic or otherwise, conscious unavailability must be deployed with precision. This is not about game playing in the manipulative sense. This is about ensuring that you have a full life independent of the relationship, that you have interests, pursuits, friendships, and time that exist outside of the dynamic. The healthiest relationships are between two people who could survive perfectly well alone, but choose to be together. When you make someone your entire life, when you are always available, always accommodating, always putting them first, you become boring. You lose yourself. And in losing yourself, you lose what made you attractive in the first place. Maintain mystery. Do not share every thought, every feeling, every experience. Keep some things to yourself. Have parts of your life that are entirely yours. Disappear occasionally, not to manipulate, but to maintain your own psychological health. Come back renewed rather than depleted. And here is the most important tactical principle. Your unavailability must be genuine, not performative. If you are withdrawing as a manipulation tactic, if you are creating artificial scarcity just to gain power, people will sense it. The power of strategic absence comes from the fact that you genuinely have something more important to do. You genuinely are comfortable alone. You genuinely are not desperate for their attention. This is why the internal work comes first. You must become someone who actually values themselves before the external tactics will work. If you withdraw but secretly crave validation, If you create distance but obsessively check to see if they noticed, if you say no but resent yourself for it, the tactic will fail. Because it is not a tactic, it is a state of being. So the modern application is this: audit your life. Where are you too available? Where are you giving too much of yourself? Where are you performing for others rather than living for yourself? Cut it out. Create boundaries. Disappear from spaces that do not serve you. Become genuinely busy with your own evolution. On social media, reduce your presence to meaningful contributions. In your career, protect your time and ensure you are valued, not just useful. In your relationships, maintain independence. In all interactions, practice the power of silence and the strength of no. Watch what happens. Watch how people scramble. Watch how your value inflates. Watch how those who took you for granted suddenly realize what they had. And watch how you feel. Lighter, stronger, more yourself than you have been in years. Now we must synthesize everything. Now we must extract the philosophical poison and inject it directly into your consciousness so that you can never unsee what has been revealed. The central truth is this: what destroys us is often what we believe to be our greatest virtue. You believed that being constantly available made you good. You believed that saying yes to everyone made you kind. You believed that sacrificing yourself made you noble. These beliefs were chains. They kept you small. They kept you exploitable. They kept you weak. Your availability was not kindness. It was fear, fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being alone, fear of being seen as selfish. And that fear made you a slave to other people's agendas. It made you a ghost in your own life, haunting the edges of other people's stories, but never living your own. The Machiavellian truth that we have excavated is not about cruelty. It is about sovereignty. It is about understanding that you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, that your first duty is to yourself, that self-respect is not something you earn through sacrifice, but something you claim through boundaries. When you disappear, when you withdraw, when you become strategically unavailable, you are not abandoning anyone. You are reclaiming yourself. You are saying that your life, your time, your energy, your existence has value. And value, by definition, must be protected. What is available to everyone is valuable to no one. This is not a call to isolate forever. This is not a call to burn bridges and live in a cave. This is a call to recognize that connection without sovereignty is not connection. It is entanglement. It is codependence. It is mutual destruction disguised as relationship. The strongest connections are between people who do not need each other, but choose each other. The deepest respect is earned not through constant presence, but through demonstrated self-respect. The most attractive quality in any human being is the ability to be content alone, to have a life so full that relationships are an enhancement rather than a necessity. Perhaps in the end, the only way to truly be seen is to first disappear. Not disappear forever, but disappear long enough that people are forced to look at the space you left, long enough that they realize they took you for granted, long enough that you remember who you are without them. And when you return, if you choose to return, you return different. You return as someone who knows their value, someone who will not diminish themselves, someone who will not be taken for granted, someone who has learned that the most powerful position is the one where you are willing to walk away. This is your rebirth. This is your transformation from disposable resource to sovereign force. Now comes the moment of commitment. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. You can watch this, nod along, feel the truth of it, and then do nothing. You can return to your patterns of over-availability and self-abandonment. You can go back to being taken for granted. Or you can choose differently. I am not asking you to subscribe for this channel. I am asking you to subscribe for your future self, for the version of you that is sovereign, for the version of you that values themselves, for the version of you that has learned to disappear when necessary and return on their own terms. That is what clicking the subscribe button represents. It is a commitment to your own transformation. But more than that, I want you to make a public declaration. I want you to comment below with 3 words, I will value myself. Why? Because there is power in public commitment. When you declare something publicly, you create accountability. You create a witness to your intention. The chains of social control are broken, not in private, but in the moment when you publicly declare that you will no longer be governed by other people's expectations. Commenting, I will value myself, is not just for me. It is not just for the algorithm. It is for you. It is the symbolic act that marks the beginning of your internal revolution. It is the moment you stop being a resource and become a force. Do it now. Write it in the comments. I will value myself. Let those words be the first brick in the fortress you are building around your sovereignty. And then, and this is the most important part, disappear. Close this app. Turn off your phone. Disappear from the digital noise. Disappear from the demands. Disappear from the expectations. Go sit in silence. Go feel the discomfort of your own company. Go begin the work of remembering who you are beneath all the layers of performance. Because on the other side of that disappearance is the version of you that people will fight to access. The version of you that commands respect without demanding it. The version of you that is valued because you first valued yourself. The truth has been spoken. The path has been illuminated. The only question remaining is, are you brave enough to walk it? Don't forget to give a like or a hype and subscribe to the channel. Watch the next video to complete everything you just learned.